Hello, my name is Hannah Burt, and today I will be talking about food and the effect it has on human growth and development. As we all know, food is essential to our growth and our development. Without food, we would perish. Food is essential to our survival, but does the quality of our food matter? As you are probably guessing, the answer to this question is yes. The quality of our food does matter. But why does it matter so much? If you eat a burger that has lettuce on it, then it should be okay, right? If not, then we will exercise to fix the problem. As I get started, I want to pose a question to you. The answer is seemingly obvious, but I want you to be thinking about it as I go through my presentation. My question is this: would you rather eat unripe fruit or poisoned fruit? In this presentation, I am going to address how food regulations have changed in the United States over the past 100 years. Then I am going to discuss obesity and genetically modified organisms. Lastly, I'm going to discuss how this relates to human growth and development. When I was doing research for this presentation, I found a journal article in the American Food Journal that I found really interesting. The article I am referring to is the one on the top left-hand corner of the screen. You probably aren't able to see it very well, but I'll read it to you in just a sec. It is an article that is copied from a journal that ran in 1913. The article by the American Food Journal is entitled "Artificially Colored Oranges Confiscated," and it reads, "Several cars of California oranges were seized by the government in November, the charge being that the fruit was artificially colored by sweating, the inferiority of the fruit accordingly concealed, the contention being that the oranges were not in fact ripe. The case was tried before Federal Judge Landis in Chicago, who decided it in favor of the government. The fruit was declared confiscated, and the judge directed the United States Marshal to put a wrapper on each one of the oranges, the wrapper to bear the printed words, 'colored by sweating.' After being so wrapped, the decision directed that the fruit be sold to the best possible advantage, and the proceeds turned into the United States Treasury." And in case you were wondering what sweating fruit means, according to another article by the United States Department of Agriculture, the sweating process turns the green color of the unripe fruit to yellow, and the fruit so treated has the appearance of being ripe. So why did I show you an article about confiscated oranges from 100 years ago? Well, it actually does have bearing on human growth and development. As I stated at the beginning of my presentation, food is essential to our growth and development, and if our food is modified, then it will have bearing on our bodies. I want you to see the difference between our food now and what it was 100 years ago. Then we worried about unripe fruit, and now we have foods that have been injected with chemicals, including hormones, caterpillar poison, fish genes, and other such injections. Caterpillar poison? Well, yes. Caterpillar poison is called Bt. The Bt means that the corn, in this case, contains Bt toxin, which originates in the bodies of poisonous caterpillars. In nature, the toxin prevents predators from eating caterpillars before they can mature into moths or butterflies. Monsanto's corn has been modified to produce this toxin, which means it makes its own pesticide, rupturing the stomachs of the insects that eat it. It is unknown what effect consuming a plant that produces this toxin will have on humans. However, lab rats that fed the Bt corn suffer from organ failure. So, would you like to have a daily dose of Bt? I could be wrong, but I doubt you do. But this is what we are eating and what we are feeding to an obese generation. So again, I ask you, would you rather have unripe fruit or poison? Hard decision, right? But this is what has happened to our food system. Genetically modified organisms have taken hold of our food systems, and along with other contributing factors, are working to harm our bodies. So now that I have discussed some of the different things that GMOs contain, let me back up the train and explain what GMOs are. Genetically modified organisms are organisms whose genes have been changed in some way. These genes are changed through genetic engineering. According to Foreman's book, Genetically Modified Foods, genes are the building blocks of DNA. Genes interact with the environment to determine the characteristics of every living organism, its appearance, development, and behavior. Genes are passed from parent to offspring. By manipulating genes, scientists have the power to transform and create living organisms. Through the power that scientists have gained, animals and plants have both been genetically modified. Genetically modified organisms were introduced to our food systems in the 80s and 90s, and according to an article by Obesity of Children, the prevalence of childhood obesity increased in the 1980s and 1990s. I do not think that it is coincidence that right when GMOs are introduced to our food system, obesity skyrockets. As far as I know, there is no evidence that can 100% directly link increase in obesity to genetically modified organisms, but the poison they put into GMOs must be affecting our bodies. You may not believe me that GMOs aren't bad for you, but if you look at the TRIPS agreement that was written up by the European Union, the European Union banned all GMOs, and it's considered a moral issue. They do not allow any genetically modified organisms into their food system because they believe it is that unhealthy. So in case you're wondering, obesity is measured by BMI, or body mass index. According to the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, which is one of the National Institutes of Health, body mass index, BMI, is a measure of body fat based on height and weight that applies to both men and women. Also, according to the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, there are 3 BMI categories. The first of these categories is normal weight, which is 18.5 to 24.9. Then there's overweight, which is 25 to 29.9. And last, there's obesity, which means you have a body mass index of 30 or greater. You will fall under one of these categories based on an equation between your height and weight. Children's obesity and weight is measured by percentile. Children above the 85th percentile are classified as overweight, and those above the 95th percentile are considered obese. Childhood obesity is a terrible thing. It not only affects play for a child, but it has considerable health risks as well. According to clinical practice, obesity in children, tackling a growing problem. Children can suffer from many different medical conditions due to obesity, and being an obese child can lead to more problems as an adult, specifically conditions of the heart and sometimes brain. Children with obesity often suffer from depression, single gene abnormalities, diabetes, and other unpleasant conditions. Also, it is important to note that parental obesity is a strong risk factor for future obesity. If you are obese as a child and do not change your ways, then you are setting up your future generations for obesity. If you are interested in finding your personal BMI, I will have a link at the end of my presentation that I will point out that you can click on to find your body mass index. This is a very, very small glimpse into food, but I think it clearly shows that there is a problem. Food and our consumption of it directly affects our growth and development. And food not only affects our weight though, it affects our brains. As I previously stated, being obese and having different weight issues can lead to heart problems or even brain problems. But even without being overweight, the food we eat still affects our brains. Food supplies the energy that our brains need in order to function. According to a study by Jason Kobler, in the last century, humans have landed on a man on the moon, sequenced the genome, and created the internet. But surprisingly, we may be slowly evolving to be less intelligent than our ancestors. That's because a series of mutations affecting the estimated 5,000 genes controlling human intellect have crept into our DNA, says Gerald Crabtree, who studies genetics at Stanford University. His findings were published in the journal Trends in Genetics. He says, I would wager that if an average citizen from Athens of 1000 BC were to suddenly appear among us, he or she would be among the brightest and most intellectually alive of our colleagues and companies, with a good memory, a broad range of ideas, and a clear-sighted view of important issues. He writes, different things have crept into our DNA, and they are helping to destroy our brains, and the food we eat is one of the factors. Again, if we do not eat right, then we cannot expect our bodies, and especially our brains, to function, and not only function, but to perform well. If our food is not healthy for us, and we are not seeking out healthy food choices, then we are not only harming ourselves right now, but we are doing harm to our future children, and their future children, and we are setting them up for bad health conditions. To be healthy, you need to watch what you are eating, but it is also important to exercise. Health is not measured by weight, and being thin does not mean that you are healthy. Health is more about the way you feel. When you wake up in the morning, do you feel energized? Are you easily fatigued? Do you have stomach problems or headache? What is your memory like? These are health issues that are affecting larger percentages of Americans, and unless drastic changes take place, America is headed to even more health issues than it has already incurred. I cannot stress enough how important our health is. Please do yourself a favor now and make healthy choices. It will pay off not only for yourself, but for future generations. This slide contains the link where you can find your body mass index. Click on it and answer, and if you put in your information, it'll give it right to you. And the following slides are about the works cited during this presentation. Thank you.